Hello, what's up? So before we continue, happy holidays. I hope you had a good time and advanced Happy New Year. So this is the second part of the video that we did on the BFI Sight and Sound Top 100 Greatest Films of All Time 2022 edition, where we discussed at length the list, the reaction to the said list, including JEANNE DIELMAN, 23 du Commerce, Bruxelles, topping the list for the first time in 2022, becoming the first film directed by a woman to top that list. And overall, the idea of the dangers of film canon and groupthink, and why the film canon that we have right now is something that must be continued to be explored and investigated, and why groupthink in film criticism is detrimental to film in general. The way people are imposing their own opinions to other people, that stuff. And also, why is it a problem when people consider including women directors and people of color in greatest films of all time lists as just mere wokeism or like performative BS? And that's a thing that I discussed in the video, so I hope you check that out. I will link it down below, but you can also click here, I think, on the video, maybe. So for this second part, I am gonna discuss the film that really caused all that noise, because I believe it in my heart that if it's just Citizen Kane or Vertigo again, then there would be no problem. There would be no noise about anything. But since JEANNE DIELMAN, for the purposes of this video, here on I will use JEANNE DIELMAN. It being the number one, people just started having concerns about it and films directed by women in general. And they say that there is a political agenda on choosing that film and the other films included. This year, in the 2022 edition, there are 11 films directed by women and 7 directed by people of color, black filmmakers who are included in the list. And there are people who don't like that. People who think that it's just a political agenda, that they don't choose anymore based on the quality of the film, that all that stuff. And the reactions range from Paul Schrader to everyone here on YouTube, actually. So yeah, so let's talk about the film that caused that. JEANNE DIELMAN, directed by Chantal Akerman, and was released actually in 1975. So it is an experimental film. It is basically the story of a woman in the titular role, JEANNE DIELMAN, on how she goes on her life for 3 days. She is a homemaker who has a son who goes to the university or school, and she stays at home to cook, to clean the house, to run errands, and also sidelines as a sex worker for older men. That's the almost 3 hours and 21 minutes of this film. And it is delivered in a very methodical pace. We have lots of long takes and static shots showing the rigor of being a homemaker, a widowed homemaker, within those 3 days. And that is a good setup, because that is where people are almost questioning, like, I saw this one comment, and I'm not even gonna post it anymore, like the first video, where it says that I've seen the film. The film only needed 20 minutes to make its point, but it stretches to 3 hours. It's not the greatest film of all time. Well, we've already discussed how there's really no such thing as greatest film of all time. There's no single film to, be crowned with that. And that is just the opinion of people who are, in this case, the critics that are gathered for the Sight and Sound list this year. I think 1,649. Probably. I forgot the exact list. I'm going to pull it up. But anyway, 1,639. 39. All right, I was off by 10 people, sorry. So let's talk about the film itself. Chantal Akerman chooses to tell this film in a very deliberate pace. Like, throw away everything that you have in your mind about expectations, about structure, or the more traditional storytelling. Throw it away. If we are used to the 3-act structure that is so prevalent in Hollywood films, especially, throw it away. And the first hour of the film, i.e., the first day, is really how I settled into this film. It's a rhythm that is, I am not used to that rhythm, but the film is unapologetic about it. And for a reason. We have to understand the slowness of that life. We have to understand that it is, in the traditional sense, uneventful. But that is the life of Jeanne Dielman, the character. So the first hour is basically me and I think the audience adjusting to that rhythm. Maybe for other people, they would be broken by that. And I couldn't blame it, actually. I mean, that's the point of experimental cinema, is that it is about experimenting with the form. It's not about adhering to tradition. It's about making you feel through non-traditional means. And if it's off-putting or something that is not into your taste, then that's just experimental cinema, baby. But regardless, there is such a careful curation, i.e., direction. Here, the shots are long, like the takes are long, really long, but they never feel empty, in a sense that it feels that there's nothing happening. And when there is nothing that's happening, the nothingness is the point. You know what I mean? That there is a deliberate choice to show this lifestyle, the pace of this lifestyle, and we're not going to be truncating that. The staticness of her life is reflected on how we see the film. And the film is really so deliberate in making us feel how she feels, or at least approximate that feeling of the big moments in my day are peeling potatoes, are cleaning the bed, and entertaining a client. And that is such a radical thing in cinema. Because we are so used to, I mean, as someone who studied from film school, the intention or the way we're taught to make films is to always move forward. Push, push, push. Exposition, next scene, build up, point of no return, build up, climax. Most of cinema has been climax driven. And I don't know why. But here, the storytelling really is in sitting there and being with her. And not letting our expectations of how storytelling should be driving us. Long takes, static. We're observing everything that's happening on the screen. She stands up. She drops the potato, or no, she drops the cutlery. Something happens. She peels the potatoes. She's breathing in deeply. This is not the usual. The increments in the storytelling are key to understanding her journey. Like, it is in the minutia of her journey where the film resides. And Chantal Akerman does not let up. I think very few were the scenes where we had a close-up. Almost never. That device of alienation actually forced me to even lean in more. I remember when I was watching this film, I would never forget it. This is core memory now. Because the film is always in like medium or wide shots. My mom was so frustrated that she stood up, went close to the television, and started looking at the screen closely. But what does it mean? What does it imply? The things that were being afforded to us cinematically, the close-up, where we could really easily, the film giving us, this is where you should put your attention. It's not affording us that. So it makes us active participants in that. So we are not slacking. We are not dead on our tracks. We are not stagnant. The thing that looks stagnant is not stagnant, it is alive. But we get to see the reality of her life, which is the small things, you know? The men in history have told great adventures, but what were women given, especially during those times? Domesticity. I'm not saying that domesticity is bad. It is an important part of our daily lives, whoever does it and whoever receives it. And if a person, man or woman, chooses to do that as their track in life, that must be respected. However, what the film is showing, especially in the context of 1970s second wave feminism, is this is a time when this was the only option for women, and what it does to women. Everyone has a breaking point when stuck in a rhythm like that. And I'm not going to spoil because it's so beautifully done in the film. I would really encourage you to stick with it in the next 3 hours, 20 minutes. But it's a breathtaking journey told in everyday events. We're not even considering those events. Like when something drops, that's not even an event. But in this film, it is an event. And it makes us understand. It makes us empathize not only to Jeanne, but to women like Jeanne, to people like Jeanne, but here especially women like Jeanne, who are in this loop, stuck in this loop. And whether they radicalize themselves or not, human nature tells humans that it would break that loop when they reach the breaking point. It's so beautifully done here. I know I haven't even discussed a lot of the technical aspects of this film. Film is so beautifully directed. It feels majestic, and it's even like mostly set interiors inside a house. I mean, yeah, there is such a clear-eyed mastery that Chantal Akerman showcases in this film that I've never seen before. JEANNE DIELMAN is unlike anything I've seen before. And to talk about now the more technical aspects of it, the editing, for example, is so sharp that it's hard to do a film like this because when you rely on long takes, then you have a tendency to go on and on and on. But really, long takes is about when you make it stay for so long, then you have to have a point. Here in JEANNE DIELMAN, every long take has a point. Every change of angle has a point. Every abrupt change in the rhythm has a point. Or when there's no change happening and you're forced to wait, is something happening or not? Everything is so decided upon, so clearly pointed towards a storytelling that is so clear-sighted. And I think that is terrific direction. So I would say actually that there is how to say, a film like this might be misconstrued to be easy to make. It is not. As an editor also, I would even dare say that it's much easier to edit the cut, because then you could really manipulate time through different shots. With the editing that JEANNE DIELMAN has, you have one go, one shot to tell the story, and that is something that requires a mastery in rhythm, in shot rhythm, in scene rhythm, and the overall rhythm of the film. And the film just does it extremely well. And I see it personally. I see it as a towering example of what film can do. It's radical. It's It's showing the possibilities of storytelling in film by not adhering to formula or tradition. Like, I think when we talk about the greatest films of all time, we have a tendency to think of them through like what they did, what they did, what they did. And usually what they did with so much. Like for example, and this is not to, not to even question the greatest, but for example, Citizen Kane, how it used a lot of devices in cinematography and editing and music to really, tell that story of that great man. And it really works. Vertigo is about the lush cinematography, music, the colors, the production design, the costume design, the acting, the grandiosity of this twisted romance. And I think on the opposite end, you have something like Bicycle Thieves, the first ever, the 1952 version of Sight and Sound, where the Italian neo-realist sensibility of shooting in actual locations using non-professional actors, that stripped downness helped in raising it to greatness. I think the same thing applies here. When you strip back all the artifice, you get to tell this genuine as heck story of this woman in a cycle of being a homemaker. And what does it do to her when it becomes a trap? Because I don't think domesticity is a trap. But when you're forced to do it, or like society tells you that it's the only thing you can do, then it becomes a trap. At the time when there's so much push for the feminist, for women's rights, look at Hollywood in the 70s. Very dire situation. I have a series on the film experience called Through Her Lens, and I'm currently going through the eligible films from during the 70s, looking at which films were directed by women. It's so dire. Like in 2020, the films eligible for the Oscars that were directed by women for Best Picture are 103. In 1973, you have 4. In 1972, you have 7. I haven't done 1971 yet, but it's so dire. So this storytelling of what's happening to women at the time, during that time, is so important to cinema. I was trying to look for a better word because I know you hear the word important, like, Unfortunately, our experience with cinema, our history with cinema, is incomplete. Yes, we have the great stories by men, but by women being systematically excluded from being able to go to those places of storytelling, we have lost decades of storytelling from women. That makes our culture incomplete, fractured, and imbalanced as heck. Now, when we do these lists, for example, I'm kind of talking about now if it deserved number 1. I don't know. It would not be my number 1. But I respect it when people choose it as a number 1 because, they have their own metric of what great means or what important means. But that's what I'm saying about pushing for stories directed by women and other minorities. It's not an agenda that the status quo is like so threatened. The status quo should be threatened, but it is making up for what was missing. We couldn't change anymore the statistics from the time, but what we can do is to highlight those that persevered despite everything and improve on that in the future. And I don't think JEANNE DIELMAN is putting JEANNE DIELMAN number 1 is making up. I just think Gentleman is part of the changing taste, changing paradigm in film criticism and film appreciation. I don't think change is bad, especially if we're heading towards a direction where not only the 50% male, 50% of the population, men, are part of what we consider important stories, great stories. I think it's long overdue, even. And cinema didn't always start this way. I've discussed this in the video. But if this is the direction that we have, and Gentleman would be emblematic of that change that is about to come in our culture, and I am so freaking excited. I would love to, for time to come, that when I talk about film canons, I don't talk about male or women directors. But as long as there is an imbalance, I'm going to be part of pushing that. And I'm not sorry about it. But as it stands, I'm lucky that when I watched Gentleman, I really tried to remove this is the number one greatest film of all time. No, 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 no. Chantal Akerman did not make that film to be the greatest film of all time, number one. So just watch it as it is and let it wash over you. If it didn't work for you, it's fine. But don't question the people. I hope you don't question the people that were able to appreciate the film. Yeah. Oh, and I even forgot to talk about how terrific Delphine Seyrig was in this film. She is the titular role of Gentleman. The physicality of the performance, unbelievable. It's a titan of a performance. The length that the film took, literally 3 hours, 20 minutes, was crucial. No minute was wasted in telling that story. So I am so happy that I was able to finally watch this after years of, I know it's from existence, but I was just not making time to watch it. I'm so glad I watched it, and I hope I would be able to get to watch it again. If I have 3 hours and 20 minutes to carve into my day again. But yeah, so this is my kind of scattershot review actually of Gentleman, and hopefully more people would seek it out. It's on the Criterion Collection. It's also I think it's also a movie maybe. So yeah. So this is the last video I'm gonna release for 2022. I've only started making videos for YouTube, like really, really doing it less than 3 months, and I'm so glad with the growth that we've had. Thank you so much if you're still watching to this minute. There's still a lot of things that I would like to catch up on. I would start reviewing the Oscar contenders. I've already seen films like The Fabelmans, Women Talking, Glass Onion, and Knives Out Mystery, After Sun. Also, I made a reaction video on the HBO docuseries Unveiled, Surviving La Luz del Mundo. And that caused quite a stir because that is about a cult based in Mexico and in 50 plus other countries. And some of the members started like attacking me online. And some of the ex-members that got out were really saying that they were commenting. So I'm gonna review that because I want to clear that out. I want to be able to watch that doc and see the story for what it is and not through the noise of both sides. Oscar season is coming up, so hopefully I would be able to catch up with more. And I'm really, really, really gonna start the MCU by next year. I promise. Who's That Knocking at My Door by Martin Scorsese. Again, if you're not aware, I launched a MCU, Martin Cinematic Universe, where we're gonna discuss the films by Martin Scorsese. We're really gonna be doing that, I know. So yeah. But anyway, again, with the growth of the channel that we've had so far, I could not express my gratitude more. I want to say thank you because you made my 2022 less crappier than it already was. 2022 is probably the worst year for me. But I'm glad that you're still sticking around and appreciating the work and being here with me, talking about film and TV and crap. And I'm really looking forward to doing more. Hopefully, the goal is to be able to do this long term, but we'll see. We'll take one step at a time. But again, thank you so much for joining me in this video. This is the part 2 of my take on the BFI Sight and Sound 100 Greatest Films of All Time 2022 edition. Yeah. So I hope you click subscribe and hit the bell button, like button. Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope to see you next time. And have a happy new year and happy holidays. Bye.